This podcast is intended for educational purposes only and is not intended to replace therapeutic services of any kind. Please refer to the list of references provided if you need support.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another session with Sara Cate and Ashley. I'm Ashley.
I'm Sara Cate.
Today, we are going to channel our inner Gin Blossom.
Hey, jealousy.
Sara Cate has been waiting for this moment just to sing that.
Imagine you heard Hey Jealousy playing by the Gin Blossoms, because we don't actually so appropriately reminded me we don't have the rights to it, so we can't play it. So I will save you from me singing it, but just, go do yourself a favor, a little Google, and take yourself back to the angsty 90s. Because today we're talking about something angsty.
Yeah, we are going to talk about jealousy, envy, and what that might reveal to us. How we can actually work with that kind of energy, and turn it into something that's, that feels a little bit better in our body, but also what can this reveal and how can we then work with it, or what information can we gain from it? But let's also talk about how it tracks in our body and how we might recognize it. And we're going to go from there.
Yeah.
So you want me to just go in?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Well, do you have anything else to say for the intro? Okay. All right. So last night I was, literally just last night I was working. We decided this topic yesterday.
Less than 12 hours ago.
Yeah. And then I literally got on my last client call of the day and we talked about jealousy. And in this specific situation, she was talking about being jealous of some girls who were very open with sharing the feminine side of themselves. And they didn't hold back. They just were who they were, and how she, in her late high school, early college, throughout college, and then early adult life, how jealous she was. And she said, she goes, I would have a really hard time being around them. I would feel like I just couldn't even be around them. I couldn't say anything because she mentioned that while she was in the middle of it, she thought that she just couldn't stand people like that she just didn't like people like that. But what she's realized, which is just so cool, is that she just really wished that she could express the feminine side of her with the same amount of self-love and not caring what people thought about who she truly was at her core, that these girls were. And that has led her to find, now we went into just because somebody expresses their feminine energy in one way, that doesn't mean it's the only way to express feminine energy, but that's a whole other topic. But we found ways where she could, and where she is expressing her feminine energy. And it wasn't that she truly didn't have something. It was that she had a desire to live her life a little bit differently. And now she's walking that path.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think what I love hearing about that kind of the exploration that you did with her had nothing really to do with who those people were and how they were. It brought it all back to, and what in you can you gather, what information can you find about yourself from this? And then look at actually your power to change it. Look at your ability to change it. I think jealousy makes us feel really out of disempowered, and out of our ability to get what we need, because we see that somebody has it. And so then we somehow feel like we can't, or we don't know how to get it. And when you come back to what's happening for you and explore what it is that you might like, or you might do in that situation, or how you might want to express yourself, then it puts the power back in your hands to kind of change your environment to get that, or to start to cultivate whatever it is that you're seeing that somebody else has.
Yeah, it really exactly what Sara Cate just said. It often has, and using this example again, there are so many ways to express the feminine side of you. I think society tells us that we have to wear like frilly dresses and
Lipstick.
yeah, shit like that. But there are so many ways. And it was interesting because I asked her a question. I said, well, what about when you do this? And she was like, oh, wow. Like she wasn't giving herself enough credit, because I think when you're jealous, and we've all been there, right? We've all been there, but when you're jealous, it makes you feel like you really don't have something.
Mm-hmm.
And then that
You're
can bring
missing
on,
out.
yeah, like you're missing out, but that can then bring on like feelings of, well, why don't I deserve to have that? Did I do something wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And then depending on where you go from there, like that can bring in feelings of shame. Well, if I just didn't do this, or if I didn't act this way, I would have this, or like, look at them. If I just was a little bit more like them, or like all of those things, we can get on this like wheel, this spinning wheel, where then we just get stuck. And like Sara Cate said, it had nothing to do with these girls. It had nothing to do with who they were. It was that there was a hope and a desire for a different way of feeling in her own body. Back to yourself. Like it was her wanting to feel differently in her body. And that's where we ultimately, it was just like a really beautiful conversation.
Yeah. Well, because you know, like Ashley and I say in every session, it's about coming back to yourself.
Are you sick of us?
I'm not.
No, me either.
But you could be. No, I the idea and concept of jealousy and envy, like, you know, it's a pretty uncomfortable feeling to have, because number one, it's kind of a gross feeling because you realize you don't have something. So it brings up a feeling of lack, a feeling of longing, a feeling of ache, of need. And then on top of that, then it is also like Ashley was saying, the shame comes in, because it's like, okay, so what have they done? Why do they deserve to have this thing that I'm looking at? So there's kind of this like gross it's very layered. Like the layers of grossness, let's just say, around jealousy. Like we don't want to feel it, because then somehow it makes us feel out of control. It makes us feel like we don't have what we need. And it makes us, you know, like feel insecure.
Yeah.
To some degree. And like insecurity, not like the popular girls at school insecure, which yes, that could be very well be an experience of this, but like insecure in the sense of, I don't have something I want or need.
Well, that can bring such urgency too. Yeah. And we start to, then you can go down this road of being like, oh my gosh, I needed it yesterday. And now I'm spinning my wheels and I'm creating this chaos in my life. And then what happens is you often might say things, you often might do things to try to get it that don't actually match up with your value system. So it's like one of those times in our lives where like our value system can get kind of like pushed to the side, because we're just trying so hard to find whatever that is that we abandon how we truly feel and what we actually truly want.
And so Ashley and I did a session a couple of weeks ago on low self-worth. And I think that really plays in here, because when we're talking about looking at what somebody else has and the fact that we don't have it, and we can say, okay, so what did they do? How did they get it? Why do they deserve it? Right. It can pull up it can put us back in that shame pattern of low self-worth. Like, well, like Ashley was saying earlier, well, I didn't do that. And I should have, and I should have pursued this, and see, I should have tried harder. Like really, it is an internal experience of self-questioning, self-doubt, self-deprecation, shame. It really is this. And this is why I really don't think jealousy or envy in and of itself is a completely awful thing, because I think it can, or emotional experience, because I think it can help us look and go, okay, so where am I still missing the mark, and where do I need to fine tune things and dial it in, because I do still want some of that. Yeah. I still, like it actually is a good meter for us to like gauge, okay, So am I actually getting closer to having that thing, or am I staying further away? And what do I need to do? I don't think that it has to be this really, truly awful experience. Right. However, where it turns awful is when the shame comes in. Where it turns awful is when we are emotionally harming ourselves because we don't believe we deserve it, or we're in a pattern of low self-worth and we're saying, if I would have done better, if I would have made different choices, I would probably have that, right? Like when it goes into that self-deprecation, and when it becomes an attack on your self esteem, when it becomes an attack on your self-worth, it really, that's where I think it gets painful. That's where I think we don't really want to feel it at all, because then we're having to look at like, how am I not showing up in my life? How am I not feeling the things I want to feel? How am I not getting the things that I want? And so, you know, coming back to, again, what we talk about all the time, which is that sense of like, okay, so when you start to feel jealous, which we all will, when you start to feel envy, how do you come back? How do you come back to yourself in that moment? I don't, whenever I say come back, I don't ever mean you can't feel the initial thought. Right. You can't have the initial thought of, why does she have that? Why does he have that? Why do they have that? Right? Like, okay, have that initial thought and let it be the instigator then to say, okay, clearly I'm having this icky feeling around wanting something that that person has. Okay, what in me is being unmet right now? What am I feeling empty in my body? What am I feeling scarce and tight in my body? Where am I in constriction? Because you could be looking at someone in a perceived, again, we have no idea what people's actual experiences are, but a perceived happy relationship. And you can look at that and then you can feel this tension and tightness in your chest, right? And you're just like, ugh, why do they have that? When really what likely could be happening is your heart is getting tense. Your chest is kind of constricting because it's like, oh God, I really want to be in connection. I really need more connection in my life. Or am I not connecting with my partner in a way right now? Right. Or am I wishing I had a partnership of love, you know, and then what am I doing in my life to support myself in getting that? Is it seeking out new connection? Is it reorganizing with my partner and reorienting to prioritizing our relationship? You know, like we can look to these things as really important reflections of what we can actually do to get what we want.
Yeah, it's a hint into like more specificity of like what is actually like in the desire. Because like Sara Cate said, yes, this is like all perception. If we're using like the healthy relationship thing or like a happy relationship, and you see these posts, you know, on social media, and it could really be not a happy relationship, but you see it and you're like, I don't have that. I want that. Here is your invitation. Your body is giving you that invitation, that constriction that you're feeling, or just that like just shitty feeling. Here's your invitation to get so specific about what you actually want. Write it out. Use the notes app in your phone, pen and paper, type it out, whatever it is. Get so specific about what that healthy, happy relationship looks like. Write every single piece out that you can think of. Keep it a running list. Like you don't have to do it all at once. Come back to it. Make another list of the stuff that you don't want. Like this desire that you have. What are the qualities that you're calling in? What are the things that you actually want? And what are the things about a relationship that you don't want? What are the things like you...
There's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, but get the more specific you can get. Your body is, like Sara Cate said, like these jealousy, envy, it's not bad to have these thoughts. Emotions are neither good nor bad. They just a human experience. This is what they are. And it is not bad. You're not a bad person for feeling these things. And what you can take from them is so much information, again, about like where you want the trajectory of your life to go. Because if you don't pay attention to that, like say you thought you moved on from something, like, and then you see another girl, we'll say, like showing her feminine energy in the same way that you like used to like run away from. You see another person doing that and you get these feelings back. You're like, okay, so there's something still there. It's not like, oh my God, I haven't gotten over it. What other quote self work do I have to do? Like now I have to like go back. Like I'm not, quote healed, or I'm not on this journey, like blah, blah, blah. Like all of that nonsense that we hear from like mainstream all the time. But there's your information. There's your little hint of like, no, hey, actually there's a desire there that's really important to you. Like we haven't forgotten about it. You might have forgotten that you want something like that in your life. So like, what is it actually? Because it ain't the person. It's not the
it just is. It has, I think social media and like the energy of the era that we are in, like has really amassed crave culture. I crave what this person has, clothing, lifestyle, energy, whatever it is. It's like this, I will look outside of myself all of the time through these images, through these perceived experiences that are being placed on the internet to show me what I don't have and what I want, rather than us feeling, experiencing, tracking what it is that we want first, and then using those examples to dial it in. We talked a lot about external orienting early on, and how we look to our outside world to really give us the framework of who we're supposed to be. And this is, I think, another instance. I think maybe some of the ache, and this is just kind of coming through right now, but like maybe some of the ache is the fact that like we aren't actually aware of or giving ourselves permission to have an understanding of what it is that we actually want.
Yes.
Like
exactly.
it's an affront to see somebody else living their life in a very specific way is almost an affront to our own authenticity. Ooh, and we talked about radical authenticity recently.
Look, Sara Cate is on a roll. She is calling in all the old
but like to it's an affront to the fact that we might not feel like somehow we're living authentically, or we don't actually know what that authenticity might be. And so then all of a sudden we're jealous because we're perceiving this person to be so them and so authentic in their existence. And so then it rattles and shifts, because then we're like, oh God, I just don't feel that in my body. Or I don't know where that is. I can't access that thing. And so we apply a label to it, feminine expression, or having a nice house, or having the job, or having the relationship, whatever it is. And we just apply, I think, these kind of like almost like Stepfordy expectations of life on things. And then that's what we're chasing. When really, I think ultimately jealousy is just like, God, I want to feel in my body. I want to know who I am. I want to trust who I am. And I want to express that person into the world. And like, that whole person, that whole kind of what we talked about, radical authenticity is actually the light and the dark, the shadow side and the joyful side. Like it's the wholeness of your expression. And jealousy does imply a sense of lack, I think, in that, in that arena.
I've started asking myself a lot, about, for certain things, like I'm in the process of packing up my apartment right now, and like simple things.
That wasn't a soundboard. That was Sarah crying slow, sad tears. Ashley's moving.
But I have like, very simple things, right? Like very simple things. Do I like this? And then I like pause. And then I'm like, okay, but do you actually like this? Right? Because we don't ask ourselves these questions. We perceive that we should like it, or like that was like, if we're referring to like clothes or whatever, like we see somebody wearing it, like we should have that. We should wear this. We should do this. We should do that. But like, I've just started like taking a step back. And do I actually like this item, this object? Or in terms of like what I do throughout the day, do I enjoy doing this? Or am I doing this for a purpose, a reason that doesn't actually add up. It's because of what I think I'm supposed to do in order to have XYZ, right? Or do I actually enjoy being here? And when we can take a little step back, again, start small, start with like, do I like this coffee mug or this coffee mug, right? Like, which one do I want to use? Which one do I want to keep? Start with those very like non-threatening decisions, because then your body builds the trust. We haven't talked about like that trust muscle in a while, but another common theme is like building that trust muscle within yourself, so that when these bigger feelings come in, these more like uncomfortable, harder to sit with feelings come in, and you all of a sudden find yourself feeling really, really jealous, you can ask yourself like, okay, what is it about that? What am I perceiving that they have? And then do I actually want that? Is it the relationship? Is it just a connection with a human? It doesn't have to be an intimate relationship, right? Like, you get to then decipher where that like ache is really coming from. So you're not like just throwing your hands up in the air and being like, I don't have this relationship in my life, I'm a failure, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And I guess, and then where I like that kind of, we have to acknowledge the ache. We have to acknowledge the sensitivity. And then we get to take care, like we get to care for it, right?
Yeah.
Rather than us having to go into shame, which is easy, again, to go from they have that, I don't, therefore I'm bad, I didn't do the right thing. I'm not doing the right things to have that. So it can, but if we come back in and go, okay, I'm having this ache in my heart, I'm having this constriction in my chest, I'm having this longing in my body. Wow, like, I really want support. I really want love. I really want community, whatever, however it's presenting. And we get to be gentle with that part of ourselves rather than in the shame of how we're not having it.
Yeah. Right.
It changes the dynamic that we have with whatever longing or ache or frustration or whatever is there. Like it turns it on its ear. And I think so much of what I do with my clients is help them really reconcile being kind to those really hard, shitty, painful emotions.
Yeah.
Right. My work is not to make that, and I say this at the beginning of it, whenever I start working with a new client, I'm like, my job is not necessarily to make you feel better. My job is to help you get comfortable with some of the most uncomfortable feelings we ever have. And being comfortable with them doesn't mean we like them.
Right.
So we're not going to like our jealousy. We're not going to like our envy. I'm going to tell you that. It's not going to come in and be like, oh, sweet jealousy. No, it'll probably be something very intense at first of like, fuck that,
Yeah.
how am I, what's going on? Like there's that kind of like really tumultuous first conversation. And like Ashley said, then we slow down and say, okay, so what is actually coming up for me? What am I perceiving this person to have that and where sensation comes into play here is like, do I feel an emptiness in my belly? Do I feel a constriction in my chest? Do I feel a tension in my arms? Why am I feeling tense in my arms? I've actually not had time to be in my body lately. Okay, there's that indicator, right? You see somebody doing yoga or working out or doing some movement and your body is feeling restricted. There it is. Like, sit with what's actually coming up from you. I haven't felt nourished in a while. I haven't felt seen in a while. So there's our sensations can give us so much information and take us away separate us from having a story be about, oh, she's a really jealous person, or they get really jealous about X, Y, or Z. Okay. It's true. We might get jealous if we're under-resourced. If we feel really, really, really under-resourced in our life, we might get jealous a lot. But to self-label or to feel labeled as a jealous person gives there's a whole opportunity then to explore why you feel jealous all of the time, or you seem to be in envy all of the time. And that is that go in a sensation the best that you can. Start small, like Ashley said, but like your internal world, even the uncomfortable ones, even the really gnarly ones, have information for you. They're not, your jealousy is not there because you're a bad person and you're you're just coveting everybody else's life.
Right.
It's likely you've been under-resourced somewhere and you need support and you need to figure out how to get it.
Yeah.
But first you have to acknowledge that, like, I don't have what I need.
Mm-hmm. And the acknowledgement is often like just the hardest part, is just acknowledging what it actually is that you have been craving or needing and not, getting fully, like the way that you need it. But then once you acknowledge and once you realize that, and you experience, not just realize, but then experience that you can, like, just you and yourself, you get to make the decision for how you move forward. Having that power makes all of these uncomfortable situations a little more tolerable, because it's you.
You're in control.
You are the one who is then deciding what's going to happen next. Like, you're in control. That's agency, right? That's agency over yourself, over all of you, because like we've said, it's not like you're never going to experience jealousy. It's not like you're going to have jealousy and you're going to love it.
No, it's
like,
so fun to feel like you don't have what you need.
Yeah. But having your power, standing in your power, standing in your agency, and being the advocate for yourself,
it's a whole change.
There's nothing like it.
Right. And then you're then become familiar to your jealousy. So when your jealousy crops up, when you feel that tension point in your body or that constriction in your chest, you're like, okay, yep, this is annoying. I don't like feeling this way. And I know there's a message here for me.
Yes.
There's information here for me.
Yes.
I'm not a big fan of the concept befriend your emotions. Because I think that implies a sugarcoating or a override of how difficult they can actually feel. I think acceptance of, like, I don't like feeling jealousy, and I know I can listen, so I feel it less or differently. And I can do some, like Ashley was saying, then you have agency over change. Then I can do something about it. If I know my jealousy, if I understand my jealousy, then I can do something to take care of it and to support myself in a different way. And I think that ultimately, with any emotion that we feel that's difficult, is the goal. Our goal is to not only feel good emotions all of the time.
Right.
And, I think there are some psychology movements out there, that promote, this, and spiritual movements. Like, if you do this, you will always feel abundance. If you do this, you will always feel good. If you do this, you will always feel.
Yeah.
And that those absolutes get really dangerous, because then it's going to tell you a different story, or me a different story, when I feel jealousy, or when I feel shame, or when I feel self-doubt or lack of self-worth, that I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
That I am.
And that it's your fault.
And that's my fault.
You created this.
And so we have to be very careful. But I think jealousy specifically, envy specifically, I'm glad we're starting to, maybe, I think we're going to talk soon about excitement and anxiety, and how they can feel really similar and really different, and to figure those out in your body. And I think it's important to start to have these conversations where we do just normalize anxiety.
Yeah.
And we normalize jealousy, and we normalize anger, and we normalize fear, and because then, like Ashley says, then we develop agency over it. Then we get to be in relationship to it. It is not controlling us. So I won't sing.
Please.
Hey, jealousy, if it comes up for you, our encouragement is to be curious. Yeah. Get a little more curious with it. Get a little bit more involved with what's happening in your inner world. I love what Ashley said too. I really want to backtrack a little bit really quickly. That's where the soundboard would come in handy. What? Rewind. I don't think that's how it sounds. But to write everything down that you want, write everything down that you don't want, and then spend a little time next to each line item with, what do I feel in my body when I think about that? When let's say you wrote down, I want to have honesty in relationship. Okay, what does it feel like to have honesty in relationship? If you were to sit there and think about being in a relationship and you felt the ability to say anything and not have to lie, change, diminish what you're feeling. You just get to be honest about it. Do you notice a sense of openness? And where do you notice that sense of openness? Or where do you notice that sense of clarity, right? Because it's not muddied with deceit or deception or you having to keep yourself small for some reason, right? Like there's no constriction in it. And so like, can you notice where that is in your body and what that kind of feels like? This is both exploring your jealousy. You could do the same thing by just sitting down and writing out, when I feel jealous, this is what I notice in my body, and start to kind of play with, and I think what I'll do is I'll put the sheet, the PDF in the show notes for this too. So if you wanted to explore, that, going back to that tracking exercise that we did eons ago now, to really explore in your body what it is that you feel when you feel jealousy. I feel an emptiness in my stomach, or I feel a constriction in my shoulders and my arms. Start to play with that, because you might not even know you're jealous of somebody in a moment. And then all of a sudden you're sitting there and you feel that constriction in your arms and that tension between your shoulder blades. And you're like, oh, there's something here that I need to pay attention to. Right. And then again, it takes it off this external experience with this person and brings it back into like, oh, what's happening for me? And what do I need to take care of for me? Okay. So if you ever find yourself jealous, you're not alone.
Definitely not alone.
And we know it's gross and it's there for a reason.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for sitting with us as always. And share this. If you found benefit from it, if you think that somebody else may benefit from it, please share it. Please like, please comment,
subscribe,
review, subscribe.
God. Tune into our last episode to hear me speak like an alien. I think a demon came out, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, guys, we will see you
next time.